Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to another live session. Today we're going to go a little bit more into habits. And I found an article that actually challenges some of the things we've been talking about. We've been talking sort of along the lines of James Clear's Atomic Habits. And I'll tell you, this much must be a pretty on topic right now, maybe where we fall in this whole pandemic, because I joined an online class last night, actually 2 nights ago. It's a class that teaches you how to buy and sell real estate as an investment, right? So I'm not like ready to go do that right now, but I want to have the knowledge, right? And there was a Memorial Day sale, so I figured I'd buy in on it. And the first video that I saw was it's a part of like the group of guys that are in Eric Thomas's group, right? And the first video that I saw was a habit stacking sermon that Eric Thomas did. It's about a half an hour video. In fact, you can find it on YouTube, and I can post the link in the comments here. But if you go to Eric Thomas, I think it's like, well, let me tell you what his account is. His account is E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher. He's got 1 million subscribers. He's pretty big. But so if you search in there, it's about 2 weeks old. It's called Habit Stacking Spiritual Development. Good video. He kind of weaves habit stacking into some, preaching, obviously, if it's a sermon, right? But it seems to be like kind of the topic du jour right now, maybe because of where people are finding themselves in this time period right now. So I wanted to go into it, and I've been, as I'm trying to get my routine back on, I've been working on my habits and my routines. And as we talk about it here, we've had a lot of discussions about it. And so I found this article that talks about like the difference between a habit and a routine. So we're going to get into that. I'll get into it in a little bit. But there's, a couple things I want to talk about today. Good morning, Pam. And good morning to everyone else, Pam says. Good morning, Pam. Good morning, Libby. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Our meme of the day is not quite so much a meme, but well, I mean, technically it's a meme. It's not a funny meme, though, but I think it's got a good point. So this post is just giving the details of a study that says the hands-on, so if you're an athlete, right, you get winded, you put your hands on your knees, you bend over. That position results in superior heart rate recovery, which means your heart rate comes down, and greater tidal volume, the amount of air inhaled into the lungs with each breath. So you're able to breathe deeper. So it leads to a better recovery than, when you guys walk around like this, right? Like you see it in basketball a lot, guys walking around like this, right? And that hands on knees posture in a lot of sports is looked at as kind of a weak posture, like, oh, look, they're winded, let's go after them, right? When in fact, it's actually giving the person doing it the best recovery possible so that they can come back and play hard again. And regardless of where you fall on this or how much you know about sports or follow sports, the point is that knowledge isn't always, it's not static. And, like we learn more, we learn and grow, and we can change our opinions, and we can change what we know based on further facts, opinions. Like there's things that change. And so this article, we'll talk about this article in a minute, but the habit stacking habits versus routines, like it sort of challenges in a way, excuse me, allergies are kicking now, boy. It changes in a way, or challenges James Clear's like definition of habits. And I think, we see this all the time, especially now and with everything being so politicized, everybody has a fact that they throw out there. And they go a lot on confirmation bias. I mean, they find one obscure thing and they go, see, I was right. And I'll tell you, I have a cousin that posted something today about mail-in balloting, and how, what she had or somebody else had was proof that it was fraudulent. And they had three separate voter registration letters all together, and it said, look, proof that, or if you don't believe that this is a fraud, check this out. Three letters addressed to the same person. So I zoom in on the photo, and it's three letters addressed to three separate people at the same address. And so I just commented, like, those are three separate people, right? And she goes, yeah, but they're addressed, they're all at the same address. And I said, well, three people can live at the same address. That's what a family is, right? And so then she goes into, yeah, but I get political stuff here from my daughter all the time, and she hasn't lived here in years, and blah, 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 blah. That's not proof either. That's just a different database. I mean, I get texts from my sister about, vote for this guy, vote for that guy. Like, databases get messed up, right? And like, marketing is different than voter registration. Like, mistakes, I'm sure, still happen. I'm sure there's valid arguments. But my point with this, let's zoom back a little bit. My point with this is that you can't just throw something out there and say it's fact because it proves your opinion. You really have to look into it and challenge your opinion. So, she's throwing out this photo of like, look, proof of voter fraud, right? Well, no, there's three different people at the same address. I mean, the names, none of them were the same except for the last name. And so, but like, we don't even check the smallest little things. So I think we have to be just a little bit, aware that, like, things change. Like, facts change. Like, studies, like, further scientific study proves that there's a different way to stand when you're winded, or a better way to stand when you're winded. And there's going to be facts that change about how to handle this virus and how many people are infected or whatever. There's going to be changes about things we talk about. What's a habit? What's a routine? Sometimes it's just a matter of changing the terminology. But you always have to question. And this is the basic point. Always question, can this be wrong? Can my opinion be wrong? Is there room for like a change in this fact, right? Like, what other things can I do to investigate this? Or am I just going to follow this and just assume that I'm on the right path? I think some of it involves faith. I think, you have to say that, like, look, if 80% of this is correct, I'm going to follow it because I like where it's going, right? But, other things, I think people, if you go too far that direction, again, we're going, there's right and wrong and in the spectrum in between, right? I think we just always have to be open for another point of view. And I think that's kind of where I go with that. So yeah. Now let me get into the comments real quick. Debbie says, hello from scorching hot California. Angel, good morning. Already been a busy one. Yeah. You know what? I could not sleep all night last night. I had a couple of thoughts that I could not get rid of. And I was walking around the house all night last night. So I woke up a little bit late today. I'm a little bit pressed for time now. Good morning from rainy Michigan. Thank you. Yeah, my allergies are killing me, guys. Killing me. Like, one of the things that was going on is I accidentally rubbed my eyes in the middle of the night last night, and they blew up like huge. I must have had something somewhere. Hey, Helen. Good to see you. I'm glad you're able to join us. Good morning. I think, we just need to find, those alternate points of view. One of the things I'm realizing right now is, as we get into habits and routines and stuff, and we'll talk about it again in a minute here, but my boys are a little disrupted right now, and I'm trying to bring their focus back in on mindfulness, whether it's like picking up bowls, picking up their laundry in the bathroom, closing doors, like the closet doors in their bedroom. If you open up the folding door and you leave it open, if you open the door to the bedroom, it slams into it and then knocks it off, right? So I've been trying to tell them, look, like, when you're done using the closet, you close the doors again, right? and closing the doors when they walk outside, so we don't let the air out, so we don't let the bugs in. Like trying to be all of that. And so Lynn came upstairs this morning and told me that somebody left the refrigerator open. And I know who did it because he was the last one to go downstairs to grab a drink. But it's the refrigerator in the garage where we keep like the overflow food. And he left it open all night, so everything in there was warm. I don't think it's that bad because I think it's all vegetables, so I don't think it's a big deal. But, again, like that mindfulness, like that, the practice of just taking a moment and doing the little thing, like being aware of the small stuff. And so I'm trying to get them more on that mindfulness track. Like they can be boys, right? But still have to be mindful of what's going on. But because their routines are disrupted, like a lot of that has been a struggle. Like, so they've been less mindful than they would have been in our old environment in the old house, right? Because their routines are disrupted, and we're going to get better with it. But, I can see this backslide, and now we have to kind of compensate and be almost overly, I have to be a little bit more disciplined with them so that we can compensate for this lack of mindfulness that they have right now in this disrupted environment and routine. So we're getting there. We're working on it. But doing all the stuff, trying to keep up with it. I even notice it like myself. Like, so, and getting into this article right now, they distinguish. This article distinguishes between what a habit is and what a routine is. And I think, maybe, and I might even have to go back and read Atomic Habits again, but maybe what James Clear was talking about with habits, habits, I think he was spot on. What he's calling habit stacking seems to me to be more of a routine. Because in this article, what they're saying, and I'll post this article after we're done with this session, right? I'll post it on the Facebook page. But habits are those things that almost feel uncomfortable if you don't do them, right? So we talk about driving home and knowing that we need to stop at the grocery store, but completely forgetting because we're so locked in and we end up in our driveway. For me, a quick one is that when we first moved into this house, we had the garbage can on one side of the kitchen and had it there for a couple of weeks. And then we changed it to the other side because it just fit a little bit better. And I'm still walking to the side of the kitchen where it was originally. That's a habit, right? I'm just locked in. It's hardwired into my brain. That's where it is. Habits are, not like if you don't wash your hands when you're done going to the bathroom, like it's almost like, oh my God, I have to wash my hands. That's a habit. There's also bad habits like smoking and things like that. Like if you try to stop smoking, like your brain just goes into short circuit. So those are habits. But there are things that are more complex that, if we didn't do them, we'd actually be thankful. Like a lot of times it's exercise or locking in on focusing on something or even doing Define My Day. Like it's going to be hard to make Define My Day a habit, but it can be part of a routine. And so they go into like how to create a good routine. And I'm reading this going, yeah, it's spot on, I believe. And I think that maybe some of it, like, again, we're alternating habit stacking and what we're calling habit stacking and what we're calling a routine. We're sort of blurring that line right there. But so, I think that this article has a good point. And they go into like how some self-help books claim habits form by simply providing a reward for a cued behavior or after a cued behavior. And it's not always correct. Like I game myself. I make bargains with myself. Like if I do it every day here with my Define My Day. If I do my priorities, then, today I get to enjoy a beer at the end of the day. So like that's not creating a habit. That's just bargaining with myself, So what they explain here is how to come up with a good routine. Like stop calling it a habit. It's actually a routine. And so first you have to accept that only certain kinds of behaviors can become habits, and that certain behaviors will never become habits. Only then can we take the first step to change our repeated behaviors. For those actions that can turn into habits, we can begin by making them into routines. So there are things you can turn into habits, but the proper way to make them a habit is a routine. Not all things can become habits, but can still be part of a healthy routine. As long as we know the difference between a habit, a behavior done with little or no thought, and a routine, a series of actions regularly followed, we can plan accordingly and not be disappointed. And so, and their point in this article is that, we think that we can make certain things habits and they will magically just be hardwired. I think I've even referenced that in the past couple of days, right? Like things that just all of a sudden are like we're not thinking about it. And that does happen. But you have to delineate where that can be a possibility and where it can't be. And for me, I know exercise can't be a habit for me. It can be a healthy routine. And I have to look further down the road to see the benefit of it. Last night on the couch, I was watching a TV show and I wanted a bag of Doritos. I wanted it. And what I did was, now that's a habit, right? That's a habit for me to get up and go get a bag of Doritos while watching a TV show. What I was trying to do to break that is I actually went in and microwaved a bag of mixed vegetables and ate a bag of mixed vegetables. But I also still wanted those Doritos. And so I'm having to make the conscious decision. Like, I need to make a healthy choice here. I need to look for the long run, right? So I'm trying to break that habit. But I'm not going to make, like, it's not like, it's not easy, right? I have to look long term and I have to make conscious decisions. So number one, and tell me if this sounds familiar, right? Number one, as part of this process, is to start with a routine, right? Like look at it as a routine. Number one, hold the time. Since we can't count on routines to happen automatically the way habits do, we need to make sure we allocate time for them. Many people go through their days with aspirations to accomplish a list of tasks, but without dedicating time on their calendars to do them, they never get everything done. Sound like habit stacking? Or I'm sorry. Nope. Now I'm screwing up. Sound like time blocking, right? Schedule what you want to do, right? Setting an implementation intention, which is what time blocking is, which is just a fancy way of saying that you will plan what you are going to do and when you are going to do it, has shown to boost the likelihood of follow through. Without a dedicated time reserved for your new routine, chances are it will never get done. So, yeah, right? So you plan on it when you're going to do it, and then you do it. You follow through on that plan, right? And then you get it done. So that's time blocking. That's exactly what we've been talking about. All right, so then number 2 is welcome discomfort. And so I liken it to be like pain is a sign of growth, right? So when you're exercising, feeling out of breath, being sore, being tired, your muscles wearing out, that's a sign of growth. Like growth comes after that. For me, if I'm doing a task that I don't want to do, pushing for an extra 5 minutes is a sign that I'm going to be able to do it easier next time. And so that's growth for me. I welcome that discomfort. Even me doing something like yard work, I look at it as a form of exercise. So I'm not looking at like, oh, I don't want to do yard work. I'm looking at it like, I don't want to do yard work, but I'm gonna exercise doing this yard work. Sure, I can have somebody else do it, but I'm gonna get exercise out of it, right? Even if I don't mind spending the money, I'm gonna get exercise out of it. So that's the benefit to me, right? On top of having a nice looking yard, right? So in here they say it's important to expect that learning and repeatedly doing a new behavior requires effort. Expect discomfort and know that you'll have to push through it. Along with setting expectations that new routines won't be effortless, you can learn coping techniques to deal with discomfort in a healthier manner. Keep in mind, those of us that have a hard time doing Define My Day every day, right? It's easy at first when we're motivated, but then we start falling off as it just becomes like this task that we're doing every day. For instance, you can learn to reimagine the difficulty in a positive way by telling yourself a different story. The yard work thing? Instead of focusing on how hard writing or exercising can be every day, think of a difficulty as part of the journey. Know that everyone who has ever made a routine out of this behavior has struggled at some point. If you desire to go to the gym regularly but dislike exercise, find ways to see it differently. Envision every drop of sweat as a sign your body is getting stronger. Learn to see the burn as tiny muscle fibers getting better at doing their job as your body rises to the challenge. Perception is a matter of perspective. No matter the routine, you can choose to reimagine your discomfort as a good thing. This may seem like a stretch for someone who hates exercise, as I once did, but it's useful to remember that many people have learned to love the very same difficulty you despise. If they can see it differently, why can't you? right? We choose how we approach the things that we do and do not like in a day, right? You can look at this as I'm writing in a silly little book, or you can say I'm gaining awareness of where I invest my time. I'm gaining awareness of why I do things in a day. I'm gaining awareness of how I feel about what I do in a day, right? So this silly little book can be a silly little book if you just look at it as a couple of pages and, oh, I'm writing down priorities. I can do that anywhere. Or you're following a process to improve how you approach your life, right? It's all a matter of perspective. Now, next, pre-commit. Before a behavior can become a habit, it needs to become a regularly performed routine. But given how effortful routines can be, it's far too easy to skip a difficult task. Thankfully, making a pre-commitment is a fantastic way to ensure you do what you say you are going to do. Uphold your obligations to yourself, right? For instance, if writing or exercising daily is a routine you want to adopt, find someone to hold you accountable. Finding someone to hold you accountable will increase your odds of success, right? That's why we have the user group. That's why I'm here every day, right? In a way, it helps me uphold my obligations, but hopefully it's helping you do the same thing, right? All right, the next one. I don't remember what number we're on. Do it right. By not expecting every aspiration to become an effortless habit, you increase your odds of success. If it's the right kind of behavior, one that can be done with little or no conscious thought, the routine can become a habit. It's important to remember not to try to try and turn hard to do behaviors into habits. Doing so risks frustration and failure. Instead, accept that it's perfectly fine that some behaviors will remain routines and expect them to never become effortless, right? This is hard. This writing in this every day is hard. It's not a habit. It'll never be a habit for me. It's hard. It's even harder to do it at night. Journaling is hard for me. It's part of a shutdown routine. It's not a habit for me. That's why this makes so much sense for me. Instead, accept that it's perfectly fine that some behaviors will remain routines and expect them to never become effortless. By focus on forming solid routines through the steps outlined above, you'll have a better chance of sticking to what's important to you while increasing the odds that some routines may blossom into habits, right? So we start with the expectation to start a routine, and if it becomes a habit, great. If it never becomes a habit, we still have a healthy routine, right? And part of that, one of the things that came up in the willpower book that I reference a lot is when you're planning out the beginning of a task, whether it's a part of a routine or not, it's pointing out the starting point and not looking at the entire task. You just want to say like going to the gym, right? Maybe we're not going to the gym right now anyway, but still, maybe it's just a matter of exercise, like getting outside. Like you don't want to think, I need to walk around the block 5 times. What you want to think is, I'm going to put on my shoes, I'm going to step outside, I'm going to start walking down the street. Like you want the earliest task that you can come up with and tell your brain you're going to do that. And point your shoes in the right direction and just start going. That way it seems smaller and more digestible to your brain. So with Define My Day, you don't want to look at it and say, oh, I need to write down all my things today and I need to, you want to say, I'm just going to sit down and open the book and start writing, right? And that's like the simplest thing. And then once you start moving in the right direction, you're fine, right? All right, let me get into the comments here. Jenny is hot in upstate New York today, high 80s. Yeah, same here. Same here. Air conditioning's been running for 2 days straight. That's a record. Debbie says, if you look hard enough, you can find facts to support your views. So this is going back to what we were talking about before the habits, right? If you look hard enough, you can find facts to support your view. For me, exploring options and being willing to listen to other opinions help me stay centered. And this is exactly how I feel about it. And it's a weird place to be because you almost never make everybody completely happy when you're talking with them. If you're constantly challenging your own opinions and therefore other people's opinions or points of view, then you're almost always having difficult conversations, which is a little bit weird. And I think back to the people that that I talked to over the weekend. One of the guys is left-leaning and has a pro-labor point of view. And the last couple that we saw over the weekend is right side and is a conservative, sort of libertarian point of view. And I had difficult conversations with both. I agree more or less with some points that each one makes, but it's like challenging my own opinions challenges theirs too. And then there's other times when I flat out disagree, but I disagree with both. And so it leads to like weird conversations. But what I found is that as long as the other person is willing to have the conversation, we get along, right? It's when the other person is just flat out like hardline in their opinion that I get frustrated and I can't have the conversation. I'm always looking to be wrong and figure out why. I won't say always. There's some times when I'm like, no, this is flat out wrong, right? Sometimes that does happen. Or I believe what something else is wrong, or that I'm completely right. It happens. Everybody does it. So Angel, your refrigerator starts chiming when you leave it open. Yes. So our one in our kitchen does, but we have an old one in the garage. That's the one that he left open. But yeah, it is helpful. It's a little annoying too when you're just trying to reorganize the fridge. The disruption, this person from the user group is saying, the disruption has caused me to not be able to think of what I need to do or even what I want to do. And so, now like you might be redlined, right? We talk about like this high anxiety, like how do we bring this down to a place of calm? And for me, I had a small experience with it after the long weekend. On Tuesday morning, I wrote down everything that I needed to do. I dump and go is basically what I'm calling it. Is you dump everything that you have to do on a list of, just a regular piece of paper or in your notebook in the back of Define My Day. I just write everything down. And I just start looking at what, like trying to sort it into a priority order. Like what can I ask somebody else to do? But then what can I do or what do I need to do today? And the more you do that exercise, the more you kind of gain an awareness and kind of bring things back to normal. Stacy, good morning. So would the habit be the same as the discipline? So yes. So for me, I call my daily disciplines are the baby stages of a habit, right? So when I have my daily disciplines I can't call them habits because they're not habits yet, right? So I'm very literal on daily disciplines and Define My Day. So, I look at daily disciplines as something that I'm trying to build into a habit or at least a healthy routine. And so when I have on there, Define My Day is a daily discipline. That might never be a habit for me, but it's going to be built into a routine. I try to do things like I've had flossing at night because I'll tend to floss in the morning, not floss at night, but it's healthier to do it at night, right? So I put floss at night as a discipline until it became a habit. And so, that for me, they're not habits yet because I have to consciously think about them. But that's what I put as a discipline. Like I'm trying to discipline myself, my actions. Feel the fear and do it anyway, right? And a lot of times, that fear, like people that like see fear and go, yeah, I'm going to beat that. That's a great mentality to have, right? And I think those are the people that excel at things. Yeah, you have to reframe things in your mind, right? And this goes for anything, like whether we're talking about facts or whether we're talking about habits. You have to reframe. You have to have the ability to see another point of view. Someone says, I cannot afford to pay for the book right now. I've been using the back of an old book. That's okay. Like you can do this process and you can follow along with us as we go. If things change for you and you want to start purchasing the book again, that's great. We also have some sales every so often of like older books or returns that aren't quite up to standard to resell, or ones that come in that, the cover might have a little mark on it. We don't want to resell it at full price. We tend to put those on sale. I think the last time we sold them, they were like $9, $10 a piece. So, if we ever have that again, we can certainly let you know. Or if we have any now, I can certainly look. But, we're certainly welcome to follow along the process as we go here. while look, we need to sell product to keep running, especially now. I'm like, I understand there's hardships that everybody's going through, and I welcome you to hang out with us and follow along with the process. I did this process for a long time on a worksheet, so that doesn't have to be. You don't have to buy the book to be part of this. Jenny says, so true. Time blocking has been very helpful during quarantine. Life never feels good all the time. So yeah, embrace the uncomfortable. And Jenny, this is like, it's almost more important now, right? I mean, like when things are unstructured, like before we were told when to get up because we needed to get to work at a certain period of time. The kids, might have had obligations. We had structure, and now that structure has been blown up. And, now we need to like do it for ourselves. And I think it maybe puts a little bit more responsibility on ourselves. So it's probably incredibly helpful. And I think, what we were talking about this, and this is just a side note. I was talking about it with somebody this weekend. I don't think I mentioned this already, but like what the difference to the workforce that this is going to be if more people work from home. Like I wouldn't want to own commercial real estate right now because I think the values, like people aren't going to want to rent. People aren't going to want to own commercial real estate. They can spend less money, businesses can spend less money by having people work from home if they found that they are more productive. And there's also that obligation, like how many people go to work and do the most important things, but then spend the rest of the time at work because they feel obligated to show their face around the office. Now, if it takes you 3 hours to do your job in the day and you have 5 more hours to do whatever, plus you don't have a commute, how much different is your life right now? And say like you get that 3 hours of work done and you find another hour or two worth of work to do. Now you're increasing efficiency or you're increasing productivity 50%, and you still haven't spent as much time at work as you normally would have. So for the people that can work from home and the businesses that can afford to have those people work from home, that things might get really good for those people, right? And you might even see communities change. We might have like people, rather than buying a house close to where they work, might buy a house closer to their family and friends because they're spending so much more time at home rather than at work. And think of all the other things that like HR and all these other things, all these other costs. Sexual harassment will probably, I would assume, go down because they're not going to be forcing people together in these environments, right? So, I mean, there could be a lot of change with a lot of these telecommuting situations. Sorry for my sniffling. I'm fighting it here. So Pam says, for anybody that loves this article Nick is reading, as I do, I highly recommend Gretchen Rubin's book, Better Than Before. It's all about making and breaking habits. It's very easy to read. So Gretchen Rubin, I actually read one of her other books. I have not seen Better Than Before. Thank you for the recommendation. I'm going to have to look that one up. That's awesome. Thank you, Pam. Levi says, thank you for covering this today. Getting my child into these routines and turning them into habits that they can autonomy is a challenge for me, or maybe automatically is a challenge for me. Can you please help with that? My bestie is watching today with us. I'm so happy. She's one of my accountability partners. I love her. That's awesome. Very cool. So, it's hard. I think it's a matter of setting like expectations and trying to lay the groundwork down for a habit. So with my boys, what I've been trying to do is gently move them towards structure. So I try to make sure they're out of bed at a certain time every day. I try to make sure like the older one likes to go immediately into his schoolwork. So I let him go immediately into his schoolwork. The younger one needs a little bit more hand holding through his schoolwork. So he screws around for a little while, maybe eats breakfast, and then starts doing his schoolwork when Lynn's in the basement packing orders. He's behind her on her computer doing his schoolwork so she can help him if he needs it. And then we try to have lunch at a regular time every day. And then we give them time to go on their iPads and PlayStation and stuff like that. And then like recently, yesterday, I said, look, after you guys do your stuff, I'm going to finish working. And at 2:00, we're going to go outside and we're going to hang out, right? And then after that, you guys can do stuff, but not with screens. So you can do whatever you want. You can read, you can go outside, play with friends. You can do whatever you want, but you're not going to have your screens. And then we know at 6:30, We always have dinner. And then after that, we have our routines. And I think the more you can structure it out, in a loose kind of way. So I'm saying this contradictory. So the more you can structure, but not so structured, right? Especially if you're starting in the beginning, you're just trying to guide them along. Same thing with, and you have to repeat yourself a lot. The same thing with the mindfulness, like the putting your laundry away or closing the doors or picking up after yourself if you have a snack bowl or whatever. It's every time kind of saying, hey, look, guys, close your door, right? And then making them go close the door. Don't do it for them. So then they're sort of building that muscle memory, if you will, that this is the thing that I need to do. Now, it's not a conceptual thing like I need to pick up my laundry. So you don't go pick up after yourself and then go pick up for them. You go pick up after yourself, go pick up after yourself. And then when they do that, they build that muscle memory, like this is what picking up after myself looks like. So that's kind of the way we go about it. It's just repetition. The same way we need to do it for ourselves, we do it for our kids. Stacy says, I think trying to do disciplines can be hard if you have to recalibrate. Like pain dictates how much I can do some days working out. It changes my plan. I don't like it, but it's a reality. And yes, so, I think there's setting expectations. I think there's trying to push it when it's a healthy way to push it. But realizing that sometimes going too far is not healthy. And so, you kind of feel your way through it. And a lot of times, being flexible, things happen. I saw in the user group that's like somebody's day blew up yesterday, I believe it was. And, they didn't get any of their priorities done. And it's just that idea that, things happen, things get screwed up, and we recalibrate the next day, readjust, and come back. Like adapt and overcome was always a military thing we'd say. We're going to come up with an obstacle. Like there's going to be something unexpected. And that's why we try to be as disciplined as we can in the good times so that when a bad time comes up, we can adapt to it, overcome, and get back on track as quickly as possible. Yes, thank you, Amber, for saying that. I have to remember to just pray first and then move, because if I give into fear, I can't move and nothing gets done. And Amber, I didn't even see your comment. So funny that, yeah. Yeah, and so Amber says, there, I think that might be it, but same, you're a perfectionist, right? And so, that's, it's finding that space, right? So we don't want to be the person that starts things and never finishes it, right? We need to get stuff done, but we also don't want to be the person that's paralyzed by trying to do everything perfectly. Like, there's maybe it's the 80-20 rule where 80% of your action or 20% of your action gets 80% of the results, and the flip side. And so, you don't want to get to, especially for important things, you don't want to get to 90% and then leave it undone. I liken this to like the garage right now. The garage is a mess, but I got it to a point where I could be satisfied with it, and then I had to move on to more important things. And then when I find that time, like if I can find an hour, I'm going to schedule that hour and get out there and clean the garage, right? You just have to be aware and keep coming back, like be disciplined enough to come back and make sure you're finishing it off to the right thing. It's like doing laundry. If you do all the laundry and then leave it in the basket, the laundry never even got done. So what was the use of doing all the work to do the laundry? So there's certain things you have to finish or you're just not going to get credit for it, right? Jenny says, it does put responsibility on ourselves. Bring back your personal power. Yes, the work environment, I agree, will change. Absolutely. Absolutely. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Oh, is that, Amber, is that what you said? Okay, I did see that earlier. I'm sorry. I got you. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I got it. Yeah, and I think that's a lot of times that's what we have to do. I think that we just have to push through it and get done what we need to get done. And that's the way it works. I mean, that's that lobster. That's feeling the anxiety, feeling the stress, and growing through it, right? So, all right, everybody, that is it for me today. I thank you for joining me. I hope you are all happy and healthy. Keep moving forward, and I will see you all tomorrow. All right, take care.